Well, joining in studio to discuss this further is Mr. Botsang Moila, political analyst. We also have Mr. Tsepo Khadima, he's also a political analyst. Very important you at home for joining in the conversation. Our Twitter handle at ANN7TV. And we'll also be expecting on the phone line Mr. Mkhize, ANC Youth League spokesperson, who'll be joining us over the phone line in just a few minutes. Gentlemen, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, I'll start with you, Mr. Khadima. Very smart for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma politically to be calling for unity. We do know that some candidates perhaps will fall into all these factions that we've been seeing within the ANC and perhaps not focusing on the good and positive that they could actually bring to the leadership of the ANC.
I think it is more than being smart politician, but rather inherent in her character. We have, of course, seen that she's been in the National Executive Committee for a very long time. It is for the first time that she will be campaigning and accepting a nomination for presidency. But in all other occasions that she has been in the, towards any national conference, she's been on one slate or another. And by and large, we've seen her that she continued to really demonstrate that she can be led and exercise that party discipline. So I think if anything, she's just simply walking the talk. It would be regarded as being smart in the fact that she is first of all the contenders for the presidency of the ANC to now have come out and say, look, this is very important. But also we have to contrast her statements with what the president suggested, that the one who's losing must be somehow be compensated by not, by becoming a second deputy president. And clearly I don't think that is getting traction. And certainly from this very strong presidential contender in the name of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, we can see that clearly. I think she's not really for that of compensating or consolation prize, if I can put it that way, for the loser. So if anything, she say you have to really, not be the party, but subject yourself to the structures of the party and the leadership core of the party. And most certainly, even if she doesn't make it, which I doubt, I think all things indicate that she will most certainly win. But if she, let's say, for whatever reason, she doesn't make it, I think she will continue to be a valuable member of the leadership corps that will be
so
elected in
I suppose what she's
December.
saying is nobody's bigger than the ANC.
Exactly.
Whatever candidate you have to concede that you've lost. But do you buy into that? Mr. Khadima is saying she's a very strong candidate going forward. Can't she really play second fiddle?
Well, good evening, Audrey, and
As
good evening
compared
to the viewers.
Particularly compared to other candidates that she's running with.
I do not think she is playing second fiddle. We should look at the history of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma within the African National Congress. As much as she's got a history of having been the cadre of the MK in the ANC, one of the longest serving members, he served almost under all presidents of the African National Congress. He served on key parliamentary or executive positions. And I don't think it's playing second fiddle. It's accepting. When I heard the statement over the weekend, there's 4 words that came to my mouth. It's integrity, it's loyalty, it's commitment, and it's also saying the ANC as an organization is bigger than me as Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. And we know that, let's not talk of the presidential position, because there's a lot of consultations that happens. It's not only for the top position. Consultation happens for the top 6, and there are people who want to be in the NEC of the ANC, but they don't make it. We all know that, for example, in 2007, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was on the so-called President Thabo Mbeki slate to be the chairperson of the ANC. What happened? She lost. What happened after she lost? To Baleka Mbete at that time, what did she do? She continued to play her role in government. She continued to play her role as an NEC member of the ANC. She continued to serve the organization that she belongs to with pride and dignity and loyalty. So this is not surprising news. It's just that at the moment, it's on a higher position. But for me, this is leadership at its best. This is also showing commitment to an organization that a particular person belongs to. And I think it poses a challenge, coming to your question. It poses a challenge to all other candidates if they will accept to be led in case they don't make it. We all know that come November 2017 will be reduced to 2 candidates. You know, it won't be 7 or 8 as we have at the moment. There'll be 2 running forward. And at the moment, she's one of the front runners with the deputy president, and we have seen Zweli Mkhize coming in. Now, what we should be looking at is to see if all other candidates who are senior, loyal members of the ANC, as we assume, will they come up and say, I don't care who wins, I don't care who rules the organization, I belong to this organization, I will abide by the constitution, the leadership, as well as the policies that the African National Congress wants to put and sell to the people of South Africa come 2019. And I think she has really, you know, thrown the cat amongst the pigeons. She has actually set a standard of a diplomat, a standard of a leader who says, I am not here to come and wear my jacket or my duke to govern or lead the ANC. I am here to do what the branches of the African National Congress want. If the branches want somebody else, but not myself, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, to lead the organization, I will listen to what the branches want.
So she's speaking to a bigger picture here, even for the candidates who may not necessarily end up, you know, being the final two, like you've already alluded to, but in their campaign to still preach this unity that the ANC is told that they so desperately need. Let's just take a look at the candidates, shall we, and perhaps just go through them and see who has really come out and said, look, I'm willing to be led should I not make it through. Cyril Ramaphosa. Lindiwe Sisulu has made it very clear that a woman has to be president come 2019. How do you see that, Mr. Khadima? Is she saying that if anyone else comes through and wins this top post, then people should not respect that?
It's a very interesting, I think, take at it. Maybe we take it that is an expression of, say, listen, the time is now. But as we get closer and closer to December, I think all the other candidates, if indeed they mean what they say by the need for unity within the African National Congress, they are going to have to echo the words of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, because that clearly is what has got a fair chance of bringing the unity which is so much needed within the ANC. But if they don't echo those words, I think if anything, the branches out there and the general public will regard it that they would have, their actions would have spoken louder than words in not echoing that sentiment or that commitment to say, this is after all political contestation, but we are within the same organization, the same party. So if we don't have the unity, we shall perish as fools. If we've got unity, of course we can be able to really chart the course for the future and ensure that the ANC continues to be relevant in the lives of the ordinary South Africans. Will they be able to echo those words? I think it remains to be seen. But if anything, as I'll say, at the same time, when you have contestation as we do now, the law of being first is the one that at the end of the day carries the day. And one of the things that we now will be looking at is that we've had a lot of rhetoric. Rhetoric now needs to move into specific program of action. What exactly? We have to bear in mind that the candidacy of the ANC presidency, you don't formulate your own policy. Effectively, you inherit a policy which should have come from the collective, and the collective in this case being from the grassroots in terms of from the previous policy conference that we've just come out of. So you inherit policy. The question becomes, well, what is your style of implementing those policies and what is your understanding of what those policies are? And how you then break down those policies in a program of action that is implementable. And I think that's really what we will start to look out for now, that any of these candidates, what is their understanding of the policy recommendations that were given at the last National Policy Conference, and what is their understanding? Unless they start to articulate themselves to those, if they continue to have rhetoric, verbosity and hyperboles, I think they will limit their chance of being able to ascend or really have a good chance of being elected. Program of action, specifics, and even now, in fact, agitating for implementation of some of those, or saying this is a program of action that must be implemented right now. We need not wait for December conference
we need to start
ratify
showing
those.
action now. Yes,
you have to start
I want to bring
now.
this issue to you. You can respond to me in just a bit. The issue of the KwaZulu-Natal's ANC 8th Provincial Elective Conference, in 2015, that's been thrown into court now, and I think the verdict will be pronounced tomorrow. How do you think this throws a spanner in the works with regards to who they will eventually nominate? We do know that the ANC KwaZulu-Natal is seen as a game changer when it comes to these issues.
Well, Audrey, it is definitely a game changer for two reasons. One, we know that KZN is the biggest African National Congress province, and they have more delegates that goes to the National Elective Conference. But the second element is that the KwaZulu-Natal current leadership that was elected in 2015 and is being disputed at the moment, they've thrown their weight behind Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. So it will definitely have an impact, depending what the court is going to rule on. It will have an impact on a candidate they endorse. And we should also recall that another candidate from KZN by the name of Dr. Zweli Mkhize has come up as well from the same region. So we cannot undermine and put a blind eye on that. But, Tsepo has said something earlier on. The horse that takes the lead, that goes in first, it has a comparative advantage. Dr. Dlamini-Zuma is a national leader of the ANC. She's not a provincial leader. She's not only coming from KwaZulu-Natal. She has led the ANC in the province, has led the ANC nationally and even continentally. Therefore, it puts her in a comparative advantage towards other candidates who will come out later. But also, I do not think she has accepted to be a leader of the ANC when she's elected because of KwaZulu-Natal. No. We should recall that the ANC Youth League as well as the ANC Women's League have put her name forward. So whatever happens in KwaZulu-Natal will not have a direct influence on her, but it will have an influence on candidates that may come out. We know that the people who took the current leadership to court is the leadership of Mr. Mkhize, who was the previous provincial leader. And we also know that Mr. Mkhize has come on the slate that we are seeing, of the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. So there's a little bit of challenge in that, but those are some of the democratic challenges of an organization that is evolving, that is growing. They will go beyond that. One thing that I've seen about Dr. Dlamini-Zuma was that, in all her speeches and statements and public addresses, she's pushing for unity in the ANC. She's pushing for respect in the organization. She is saying there's one ANC. This thing of people talking about different ANCs is not what she's going for. So that makes a big difference. And this takes me back to your question you asked earlier on about the situation of the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, as well as a woman in this instance who happens to be Mrs. Sisulu, to say, but do they stand a chance or whatsoever? It's good that Minister Sisulu has pushed forward the element of saying a woman must lead the ANC. I just hope that when she says a woman, she's not talking only about herself. She's a good leader, she's respected in the ANC. But if she says a woman, then it means she can come to what Dr. Zuma has said and said, no, any other woman should lead the organization and not only a woman because I'm contesting. The only disadvantage that the Deputy President has, and people are putting a blind eye on it, every time Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa lost competition in the ANC, he stepped out. Not out of the organization, but he became quiet in politics. He focused on business and other things. Then when an opportunity comes, he puts his head up and he loses and he goes out. So there has been the trend. But people like Lindiwe Sisulu, people like Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, they stood the test of time. They accepted any other position that the organization has put them to. So that has built a solid ground for them to say, these are tested cadres. They were there for the movement even during trying times. They don't believe in slaves. They believe in serving the organization, and we don't have anybody else. I'm afraid people can differ with me.
Very interesting that, with Cyril Ramaphosa sort of stepping out. I suppose Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma alluded to that in a speech over the weekend to say you cannot say because you're not happy about a certain post, then you remove yourself from the ANC. Do you think perhaps the Deputy President is more of does it in a diplomatic way and doesn't so much, come out and say, but then again, actions speak louder than words, don't they?
Yeah, I think Deputy President has got a simple challenge of explaining his decision and conduct in 1994 with the inauguration ceremony of first President of the Democratic South Africa, President Nelson Mandela, that he did not attend that inauguration because he thought looked over for the position of deputy president. We know that we had a government of national unity with FVA de Klerk, as well as Thabo Mbeki, both of them becoming joint deputy presidents to President Mandela. Now, that itself, again, I think he's got a hard time to have to explain what were the circumstances that led to him not attending a very historic moment. This is the inauguration of Nelson Mandela. But there are a number of other times where it would appear that, and also that he was brought in 2012 as a reluctant candidate for the position of deputy president. In fact, we didn't really see him do much campaigning then. So he's got a lot of, I think, uphill. Will he be able to overcome it? Again, as I say, it depends on him being able to start to pronounce himself effectively. One of the things that he needs to pronounce himself on, taking into account this background, is that should he not be, should he not succeed as president of the ANC in December, will he serve under whoever that will be president?
I think that's quite a very disturbing thought to say if he's not happy with it. What does he do this time? Already the ANC is seen as being at its weakest
but if he doesn't
when it comes to unity.
If he doesn't come out clearly, categorically and say, I will serve under whoever that will be.
So
that
it's important for him to come out and clarify
that. It is very crucial for the members of the African National Congress, for those 4,000 delegates who will be going or coming to Gauteng to elect a new leader. They should know that the leader that we elect, if it happens that he or she loses, he or she will remain, because people vote for you because they've got confidence in you. They've got confidence in your skills and your knowledge of the organization. And if you lose, if you leave the organization, then the organization loses that cream of the crop, that knowledge that people have invested in you. But also we should recall, Tsepo, that in 2012, the only reason, and people can debate this, the only reason Cyril Ramaphosa came up in Mangaung in 2012, it is because the favored then Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, or acting president, refused to settle for the second position, to say, should I lose, can I be the deputy of the country, which many ANC members regret why he didn't do that, because he was favored. If Kgalema Motlanthe in 2012 in Mangaung would have said, if I lose to become the president of the African National Congress, I will welcome to sit as the deputy president of the African National Congress, Cyril Ramaphosa would have not emerged, and that is the situation. Tsepo is saying he was reluctant. Yes, he was, but also there was no contestation for that position. There was no challenge for the second in charge, literally so. But it's a very difficult
So are these personal ambitions that are perhaps surpassing, putting the country first? What are we seeing here? Because does a person then sacrifice their own policies that they championed during their campaign and, then bow down to the then, so to speak, leader?
Yeah, again, if you say, look, the issue that no one has got their own policies, you don't formulate your own policies. Unlike in the United States, whereby you bring your own flavor and your own policy formulation, say this is the stance I will take. In this case, you inherited from what the leadership collective and the grassroots would have thought this is what we really, the policy direction we want to see the party taking, is now how you articulate your ability, your understanding, and your ability to then implement those policies. What are the tools and mechanisms you will employ to implement those policies effectively to achieve what results? And these candidates, they have, for up till now, none of them have actually been saying, these are the policies from the National Policy Conference, but this is the style that I will employ, these are the tools and mechanisms I will use to ensure that they are effectively implemented. Of course, we know as we sit here that one of the weaknesses within the ANC has been that they've got excellent policies. They've been formulating excellent policies from 1991 in their first conference since after the,
unbanning.
Yeah, after the unbanning. But implementation has always been lacking. And now you need actually somebody who can effectively articulate how they will avoid the mistakes and the weaknesses of the past, and that going forward, they are the right person to be able to
But you mentioned Zweli Mkhize, some would argue that he's a compromise candidate going forward.
Well,
what kind of a role do you think he plays in the dynamics of these slates, particularly with bringing unity within the ANC with whoever leader then takes over going forward?
Well, I'm one of the people who had said before, and my colleague here will differ with me, who had said before, we should not undermine or underestimate the power that Zweli Mkhize may bring forth, especially that, look, South Africans in general, as well as most of the ANC people, they don't have confidence that much in Cyril Ramaphosa because of her previous conduct that we just, discussed, and all other things that will come up and decampaign him. The Marikana issue, him being in business with white monopoly capital, the ANC policy conference have pronounced on white monopoly capital and so forth. Then the second element is we know that it's very wrong, I must put it categorically, it's very wrong for us as a nation to sit and try and decampaign Dr. Dlamini Zuma just because she's got a Zuma surname. She has been in the ANC, she has been a leader in this country, she has been a leader in that political party. But now, in absence of these two candidates, I personally do not see any other person that the ANC will put forward despite Zweli Mkhize. On all the other 7 candidates that are there, I think, and I don't think he will win over these 2 present front runners.
But should it come
I think he will be the person who will beat all other candidates and be seen as a compromise candidate. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons is he comes from KwaZulu-Natal, which is a province that is the largest number of candidates that will go to the province. Also, if you follow what is happening in KZN and ANC with the court dispute and so forth, he is actually liked by both groups. Whether it's the current leadership of the ANC in KZN or is the previous premier or chairperson, Mr. Mkhize's group, he's liked by both. Yeah. So that counts to his advantage. The other element is that he has been in the ANC and he has performed well in the portfolios he handled within the ruling party, whether it's an MEC, whether it's the current treasurer general of the ruling party. So we cannot put a blind eye on that. But what compromise candidates do, and I know people will not like that, they will say for peace sake and for progress, we prefer that. But compromise candidates, they defeat democracy. They defeat the process of democracy because they get brought in without contestation, without challenging,
and
without
go into the
battle.
Yes, I just want to get Mr. Khadima's comment very quickly as we close. Are we underestimating Zweli Mkhize?
No, we're not underestimating him. But for me, I see the difficulty of how he'll get out of being on the slate of the deputy president. And that still hasn't been explained. Because with the slate, the question is that who is the leadership core that he will be expecting to be elected with, since he has now thrown his hat into the ring that he's eligible for or to accept the nomination as president of the ANC. The other 2 candidates who are effectively the front runners, they already have a leadership core, they have a slate, and once you start analyzing the strengths and the weaknesses of that slate, you can't help but think that Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's leadership core, but right now, by far offers the strongest and the most credible of the other would-be candidates.
And with that, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. I'm glad we're ending on a note where you both agree. Well, that's all we have for you. Discussing Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma saying she's willing to be led, the unity within the ANC. Are there other candidates, presidential hopefuls, willing to do the same? You're at home. Thank you for joining in the conversation with the tweets. Thank you for engaging. This is ANN7 Pride. Do stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes with more.